My love for Tyler Perry is sincere. It's real.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most outrageous moments that unfolded on the set of the sensational talk show Dr. Phil, whether they happened on screen or behind the scenes.
So, Dr. Phil, I'm going to give you from now till April 5th to issue an apology.
Number 10, Levi Johnston goes into uncomfortable detail.
Now, Levi says he takes fatherhood very seriously, and that's a side of him that nobody really gets to see.
If the name Levi Johnston doesn't ring a bell, then you might have completely blocked out the 2008 presidential election. Johnston was the two-time fiancé of Sarah Palin's daughter Bristol, who gained some infamy after news broke during the campaign that he and Bristol were expecting a baby and would be getting married. Post-election, Johnston milked his 15 minutes of fame. In 2012, he appeared on Dr. Phil for an interview that one can only describe as painfully awkward.
This is a definite must. You know, like Carhartt bibs, just like Dad has. One of my best days, was the day Tripp was born.
Johnston addressed claims that he had stolen Bristol's virginity and denied the version of events that she had painted. Overall, this was a deep dive into really personal details that, frankly, none of us needed to know.
Yeah, I've actually heard Bristol say that she's going to find a new father for Tripp. There will never be another father for Tripp, and I'll make sure of that.
Number 9, Nicholas Brendon storms off set.
Dual diagnosis means that you're battling depression and are an addict. Depression is a real thing, and I was ashamed of it a little bit too.
Best known for playing Xander Harris on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Nicholas Brendon seemed poised for a bright acting future after the show ended. However, by the 2010s, his career hit a rough patch due to legal troubles stemming from substance use disorder.
It truly was insane. There was no rational thinking behind that at all. Pretty much all these arrests were related to sleeping pills and alcohol.
In 2015, Brendon went on Dr. Phil to discuss his experience, but the interview took an unexpected turn. Rather than try to raise awareness about alcohol use disorder, Dr. Phil seemed intent on shaming the actor. The tense exchange lasted all of 4 minutes before Brendon decided he had had enough and stormed off the set.
You were at a bar last night.
We're done. I'm not doing this.
And
Thank you, though. Thank you.
He, however, returned to the show a few months later after spending time in a rehab facility. Number 8, Eric Roberts' testiness.
We discussed that we leave out Julia and Emma because they have lives that they didn't ask to be on the Dr. Phil show.
Oscar-nominated actor Eric Roberts may not be the most recognizable face in Hollywood, despite starring in more films than most. However, his family connections are quite famous. His sister Julia and daughter Emma. Nevertheless, Roberts hasn't always had the best relationship with them over the years.
You did take the opportunity in the book to publicly apologize to your sister Julia for saying, if it wasn't for me, there would be no Julia Roberts. Why do you think you said that?
By the time of his 2012 interview on Dr. Phil, though, things had improved, and he wanted to avoid discussing them to keep it that way. But after he objected to Dr. Phil bringing the two ladies up, Roberts' wife Eliza stepped in to call him out for being testy.
I worry when he's just like that in the world. I get very, very worried.
The entire response, treating Roberts like a child and referring to him like he wasn't seated right beside her, felt both bizarre and patronizing. Number 7, the exploitation of Shelley Duvall. Sometimes celebrity interviews on Dr. Phil can be strange. Other times they're just downright problematic. Case in point, the late Shelley Duvall. In 2016, after years away from the public eye, Duvall appeared on The Show, revealing signs of mental illness.
I knew Robin and I was sorry when he died. That was a sad day.
I don't think he's dead.
Yeah, you don't think he's dead?
No.
One would expect Dr. Phil, as a psychologist, to address the problem and provide meaningful help. Instead, he seemed more focused on Duvall's bizarre claims, in a way that felt exploitative and deeply uncomfortable to watch.
You think this is happening to other people too?
That's how they said it. The blonde lady.
That's who?
The blonde lady that works for you.
Sarah?
The host was rightfully criticized by many in the industry, but he has expressed no regrets about the interview. In fact, it turns out that he even considered bringing Duvall back on the show, but thankfully she declined the invitation.
We worked with her family. We worked with her for over a year off camera after that fact.
Number 6, Zachary Davis's disturbing interview. This case is sure to leave anyone horrified.
Did you kill your mother?
Yeah.
You killed your mother.
Back in 2012, Zachary Davis, then a teenager, ended his mother's life and attempted to do the same to his older brother by setting their house on fire. The tragic incident occurred in Hendersonville, Tennessee, but it gained national attention in 2015 when Dr. Phil interviewed Davis on his show.
When did you decide to kill your mother?
I decided the day I did it.
Throughout the interview, Davis maintains a flat, monotone voice, completely devoid of emotion, as he goes into disturbing detail about the murder and his reasoning behind it. At one point, he even laughs slightly while reflecting on the incident.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Way bigger than a hammer.
2 months after the interview was taped, David was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Number 5, Aneska's troubling antics. Speaking of violent minors, Dr. Phil also featured a young girl named Aneska on his show in 2016. While she comes across as innocent, Aneska was actually a lot more frightening.
Hurt them, I'll threaten. One time, they made me really angry, and I chased my siblings around with a knife.
She had begun exhibiting violent behavior from a young age, including deliberately killing the family's pet hamster and a nest of birds. During her interview, Aneska remained eerily calm as she recounted these actions, which understandably had made her family feel unsafe.
I remember where I did it. It was in the living room.
Was he smashed?
Yeah, he was gone.
Many viewers were disturbed not only by her chilling claims, but also by Dr. Phil's decision to showcase her on TV rather than get her the help she needed. Fortunately, it appears Aneska eventually received the necessary support, as she seems to have transitioned to a relatively normal teenage life.
I am doing great. I've held a job for 3 years. I have a great relationship with my mom and my dad, and as well as my siblings too.
Number 4, Peyton and her bigoted father. Dr. Phil has often been criticized for pushing vulnerable guests to the brink purely for entertainment. But some guests bring their own controversy without any pushing needed.
My dad has called my son a critter, a monster, a creature. He told me I was growing an ape inside of my body.
In this episode, a lady named Peyton attempted to reconcile with her father, David, who was a member of the KKK. David had been imprisoned for trying to destroy an abortion clinic, and while he was behind bars, Peyton had a biracial child.
He found out I was pregnant with a biracial baby.
This caused a rift between them, as David cut Peyton off due to his racist beliefs, leaving her feeling abandoned. His brazen ideologies and the way he speaks so disparagingly about his own grandson, despite being a convicted criminal himself, is enough to make anyone want to turn off the TV immediately.
One drop of non-white blood, it ceases to be human, and since it's not human, it is not my grandchild.
Number 3, Delusion at its finest.
I met Tyler Perry through his official Facebook account. Tyler was a complete gentleman with me.
In 2018, filmmaker and playwright Tyler Perry was in a relationship with his longtime partner, Galila Bekele, with whom he shared a child. Meanwhile, miles away, a woman named Carla was fully convinced that she was married to Perry, despite never having met him in person.
Approximately 2 years ago, he asked me to marry him. I told him yes. It makes me ecstatic just knowing that I am the wife of Tyler Perry.
Concerned for her well-being, Carla's daughters brought her to Dr. Phil after she had been scammed of nearly $100,000 by someone pretending to be Perry online. Yet absolutely nothing could shake Carla's belief that she hadn't fallen for an imposter. She believed that she was the mother of Perry's child, despite acknowledging that she never donated her eggs.
I don't know how that would be possible. I didn't donate any eggs to a clinic. The blood that runs through that child's veins is mine.
While it may be easy to mock her, at its core, Carla's situation is deeply tragic. Number 2, toxic workplace allegations. Ellen DeGeneres was not the only daytime talk show host to face allegations of fostering a toxic workplace. In 2022, she was joined by Dr. Phil.
A dozen current and former employees have come forward alleging toxic workplace behavior on the set of Dr. Phil.
Several current and former employees of his show claimed that they had experienced a hostile environment, rife with fear, intimidation, and racism. Although fingers were not pointed directly at the host, staffers named the executive producer and implied that Dr. Phil was aware of the issues.
Executive producer Carla Pennington screamed, swore, and suggested she would fire people in the show's control room, with one employee saying it was traumatizing. It was the worst hour of your life.
They also claimed that producers encouraged them to exploit the guests in their worst moments and discouraged them from booking people of color. Although Dr. Phil and the producers vehemently denied the allegations, the controversy may have contributed to the show getting cancelled about a year later.
I've been very blessed. I think 20 years, who gets to do that? And I really look at it with great humility.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1, the Turnabout Ranch controversy.
We think it is long overdue for Turnabout Ranch to be held accountable for what happened to Hannah when she was there.
One of the most frequent types of guests on Dr. Phil are troubled teens, perhaps the most infamous being Danielle Bregoli. If you're wondering how the show helps these teens afterwards, the answer is often sending them to the Turnabout Ranch, an isolated clinic in Utah, to sort out their issues.
She says while she was at the ranch, she was not properly protected.
At the ranch, I was alone and isolated from all of my family.
However, in 2021, Hannah Archuleta, a former guest, alleged that she was assaulted by a staff member at the ranch and sued Dr. Phil for pressuring her parents to send her there. Bregoli later backed up these claims in a shocking video, alleging that she had a similar experience at the facility.
They had no problem holding kids down, which is against the law. You're not supposed to touch the kids, but they had no problem doing that.
These allegations were denied by the Turnabout Ranch, and Archuleta's lawsuit was ultimately dismissed in 2022. What is the one moment on Dr. Phil that left you shaking your head? Share it with us in the comments below.
Is the president trying to get to you?
The president? I called the presidents for help of the United States.
Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.